Hello everyone, welcome back. My name's Zach and I'm a recovering addict. I'm 14 months, 2 weeks clean, so just coming up to 15 months. And this week I'm going to be talking about how to help addicts, whether they be friends, family members. And by helping, I mean I'm going to talk through my experience in receiving help in different stages of my addiction, and what the help looked like when I finally got clean. And also I'm going to talk about my experience in trying to help others get clean. So to start off with, talking about my life and how things went for me, it is, as I said, different stages of, getting help and receiving help and actually the help working. At the beginning of my addiction, I didn't want to hear what anybody had to say to me about my life, about my addiction, about my using, and how much it was going to ruin my life. And people could see the direction that I was heading, and no matter what anyone said to me at that point in my life, I would not listen at all. It was pointless anybody wasting their breath and trying to help me, because I was so ignorant, because I spent a lot of my life doing everything my way. And as a result of doing everything my way, I did actually get a lot of success, certainly in business. I was on my own from sort of 16, 17 onwards, and never really looked back to my family. And I achieved everything on my own merit, and therefore that developed this level of ignorance in me in terms of accepting when other people could help me with something. I always had to do it on my way, and not listen to anybody else. Effectively, that was a really bad attitude to have towards recovery, because I know I needed help, but it took me a very, very long time to come to an understanding where I had to accept that I didn't know how to get clean. And I'm going to talk through the stages of, what that looked like, in early addiction, 22, 23, 24. There was nothing anybody could have said to me at that point in my life that I would have listened to. I would have never listened to anybody trying to help me, because I just did not want to know. I was ignorant to the fact that I was an addict. I would not admit that. I was quite happy using at weekends. I didn't use every single day, but I was definitely an addict. I was using every single weekend without fail, but I was still going to work Monday to Friday to start off with, and I was incredibly successful. So that led me to be even more ignorant to people, thinking that I knew better. Because, when I had achieved a lot on my own merit, from the age of 17, I'd sort of left and started my own business by the age of 21, and all these successes made me feel that everything I did was right. I was totally right in anything that I did, and nobody could tell me anything, because I was very successful, and therefore I knew everything. So it was a difficult time for me to get to a place where I actually lost that business because of my addiction. And it was only then I actually realised, I've got a real problem. And I went to rehab at that time, but I went for the totally wrong reasons. I went for everybody else. I went for my business. I went for people that I was, hurting, and people that were wanting me to get clean, and trying to do that for them. But, and I knew that I had a problem, and I knew I needed to get clean. But, I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready at 25 years old. I just was not ready. So I did do the treatment. I learned a hell of a lot, and I learned the severity of my disease and where I was at. And, it took me another 4 years from that point onwards to finally get to a place where I got clean, and I lost a lot more in those 4 years of myself. My relationship with my son started to diminish. My business, the second business that I'd started, because I got kicked out of the first one, was starting to fail again. So all the same behaviours started to happen again, and essentially I didn't want to lose it all, especially my son. And I knew that if I did lose it all again, I would probably never come back. And essentially that was a dark place that I couldn't bear to go again, because the pain the first time round was just as difficult, and this time I felt would be even harder. So I finally came to a place where I wanted to get clean, and I took myself to treatment, not because anybody had asked me or told me to. I wanted to go. I needed to go. I needed to get clean. I was done with how I was living and the way I was feeling every single day. It was only through that severity of pain that I finally came to that place of acceptance that I need to listen, I need to accept the help of others, and I need to acknowledge the fact that I can't do this on my own. I cannot get clean on my own. I've tried every single way to do it my way, and every single time it failed. So therefore, I need to seek help from people who know more than me. And I did that in treatment, and then I came out and I continue to do that with Narcotics Anonymous. My recovery plan was very extensive. I had 3 days a week in treatment on a non-residential program, and then I had 3 meetings a week. I checked in with my sponsor every single day. I still do that, well, most days I would say. I have therapy once every 2 weeks. That's what my recovery plan looks like at the moment, and that's consistent, and it has been for the last year or so. And that's what it took for me to get to that place. And next, I'd like to talk about how we go about helping others, because in my clean time now, I have tried to help quite a few people, some of which have failed, some have been successful, and the difference really doesn't come with my approach. It really comes from the individual and where they're at. I feel like my approach to getting clean has been consistent with everyone I've worked with, and the ones that it's worked for are the ones that just really want it. They really want to get clean, and it can be quite draining. It can be quite emotionally draining especially when it's a family member that you're trying to help, which in my case, my sister. I was trying to help her get clean, and I want to talk that process through of how difficult it really was for me to do this. So I went to get her from somewhere in London where she had fallen incredibly unwell. She was very, very skinny, injecting heroin and crack. And when I got to her, she was an absolute emotional wreck. She hadn't left the flat for months. She had cuts and scars all over her face, legs and arms. Yes, it was terrifying to see her that sick, that poorly, and that frightened. And I took her out, and I took her to a hospital closer to where I live, and she got clean for 2 or 3 weeks. I took her to a rehabilitation clinic, not a treatment center. It's a clinic local to me, because she'd already been unsuccessful at one treatment center, and we couldn't put her in another because it was too much financially, and we didn't have the support that we did the first time round. So we went with a local clinic that tried to help, and they put her on a substitute for the heroin, and it started to work. I got her some accommodation, I found her somewhere to live, set her up with the NA meetings. She had all the tools available, and unfortunately after 2 or 3 weeks, she decided that she was going to continue using, and eventually went back to the place in London where I went and got her from. Seeing her in that state was one of the most painful things I feel like I've ever had to see in front of my own eyes, and it was so sad and so draining. And essentially I came to a place with my sister that I've had to accept that she's only going to get clean when she's ready. And I continued to be there for her over the phone throughout the following months when she called, and I realised that by doing that, I'm just enabling her by being there, because she could get as wasted as she wanted and then call me, and I would answer, and I'd sit there and listen to her in absolute agony and despair and emotionally traumatized by the state of which she'd got herself to. And I was then suffering, and essentially it gets to a point where you can only do that so much until you're not helping this person by being there, because they're calling you with the same things every single time, and they're not going forwards, not changing. And unfortunately they don't really remember when they've had these conversations because of the state that they're in. So essentially the only person that's in pain out of this situation is yourself, is me. I was walking away with all the memories that I have of her being erratic and emotional and insane, and not my sister. I had to go through that with her, and then she doesn't really remember any of it because she's where she's at and I do. So why am I doing this? Why am I continuing to be there when I'm not helping her? I'm hurting myself. Essentially, I have to let go. And I've done that now, and I've said that I'll be here for her when she's ready to get clean, but until then I can't speak to her anymore. And it's more difficult doing this than it is to actually be there and you know, listen to all of the insanity, because you feel like you're being there is good for you as a person to be there, but essentially you're causing yourself more harm, and you're not doing her, I wasn't doing her any favors. So I've now come to a place where I don't hear from her unless, you know, she says something to my mother, and my mother will pass that information on to me, but essentially it's always pretty negative in terms of where she's at still. And you know, that's a real difficult choice for me to make, but I know through guidance that I've accepted from other people on the situation that was the right thing to do. And that's the sad, awful situation that addiction can bring us to. So I was in a lot of dilemma with how to treat this situation going forward, but now I feel a lot more comfortable with the decision that I made to do that. But there are situations where you don't have to do this, because there are some people who are in active addiction that they're at that place where they're ready to get clean, and you can spot this a mile off, because they're prepared to go to every length necessary to get themselves clean. And you can see this by not what they say, but by the behaviors that they present, in terms of, you know, their commitment to their recovery. You know, they're prepared to take all of the suggestions that you make to them, you know, telling them about therapy, telling them that meetings could work for them, telling them that, you know, this is how I've done it, it's up to you what you do. If they are prepared to go to all the lengths that you were to get themselves clean and consistently do that, then continue to invest in these people, is my opinion, because they're showing you that they're ready to stop. They've had enough, they've lost enough, they've had enough pain, and they've come to a place where they realize that their lives need to change, and they're prepared to go to all lengths necessary to get that done. And those are the two, you know, scenarios that I found myself in trying to help others. And with regards to my sister, I felt like I did way too much in the first instance by, you know, being there. But essentially I had to do that for me, because I needed to know that I've done everything in my power to do for her what I possibly could to get her clean. And, you know, if that wasn't enough, then at least I know I've done everything that I can. You know, and I know that I didn't do anything wrong, because I've done the same with others and it's worked. So it's really on her. And that's just the bitter pill to swallow of active addiction. That's the issue that we face, and sometimes we just have to sit there and accept what's going on and you know, let them get to that place themselves. So that's my 14 minutes of how to help other addicts. You know, but what I will actually say about how to help other addicts is that there's 3 or 4 things that you can really do. And one is take them to NA meetings regularly, every single day if you need to. 2, get them into therapy. 3, get them into treatment. And 4, just love them and hold them through the entire process, and just be there for them. And that's it. That's the best that we can do. Thanks. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if there's anything else I can help with or videos you'd like to see, please don't hesitate to comment, and you know, I'll do my best to put some videos out for you. Thanks.